Everybody do the Michigan rag. Everybody likes the Michigan rag. Every Mame and Jane and Ruth, from Weehawken to Duluth, slide, ride, glide the Michigan stomp, rump, pump the Michigan jump, pump, pump the Michigan ride.
It's the stuff legends are made of. Well, in the Big Ten it is. The Legends Division. And a lot of people think that it's going to come down to 3 teams. Michigan, Nebraska, and Michigan State. Pretty much I have the same sentiments as well. But let's begin my preview of the Legends by talking about the Maize and Blue. Last season, Michigan under first-year head coach Brady Hoke did quite a bit. They won 11 ball games, won the Sugar Bowl, and did so against Virginia Tech. This season, the Wolverines return electric quarterback Denard Robinson, who already in his career has amassed over 3,000 yards rushing. Running back Fitzgerald Toussaint also gives Michigan a 1-2 punch. Last season, Toussaint was a big threat. He rushed for over 1,000 yards. So when you're playing Michigan, you can't just focus on Robinson. You have to focus on Toussaint as well. But Michigan needs to get more efficiency from their passing attack. For all the good things about Robinson that he's done in his career for the Wolverines, he has still struggled throwing the ball. Last season, he threw 15 interceptions. So he's got to make better decisions and throw a little bit less off the back foot. And the offensive line returned some beef as well with Taylor Lewin. On the defensive side, Michigan 2 years ago was an absolute joke in this department, giving up points anytime and every time. But last season they improved dramatically, and a big reason why the Wolverines lost just twice last season. Kenny Demons returns at linebacker, along with safety Jordan Kovacs. So Michigan's defense, really be watching for them. If you look at the schedule, it is filled with absolute landmines, a nightmare. September alone will be tough, playing both Alabama and Notre Dame away from home. The Alabama game is in Arlington, and that's the season opener. And plus, we haven't even gotten into the Big Ten schedule yet, and it's pretty tough as well. Playing both at Nebraska and, of course, the rivalry at the end of the year against Ohio State. Last season, Ohio State was mediocre. The game was in Michigan, and still the Spartans needed to eke out a 6-point win against their arch rivals. Michigan, I foresee having about a 9-win season. And don't forget also the game against Michigan State, which could decide the Legends Division. That'll be on October 20th in Ann Arbor. I think there are too many difficult games for Michigan to expect them to get back to a BCS game. It will be a nice year in Michigan, but I don't foresee them winning this division. The Northwestern Wildcats, they've gone to a bowl game each of the last 4 seasons, but they've been mediocre in doing so. And now Dan Purcell, their all-everything quarterback, is gone. So Kane Coulter now must take over in Evanston. Wide receiver Demetrius Fields, he was valuable last year, and good news for the Wildcats, he returns along with their explosive running back Malin Jones. But for Northwestern's spread offense to continue to be effective, they have to do a better job in protecting the quarterback. Despite the Wildcats last season having good moments, including the upset win at Nebraska, Northwestern during 2011 struggled big time protecting the quarterback, giving up 42 sacks. On the defensive side, they also have to do a better job in getting to the quarterback because last season they got very little pressure on the opposing QB. It helps for Northwestern to have all the linebackers return, but the secondary will be relatively new with only Ibrahim Campbell as the lone returning starter in the secondary. Northwestern's schedule is fairly manageable, not anybody daunting to play out of the league, and the first half of the schedule, other than the game at Penn State, doesn't look that bad. But the second half of the schedule for Northwestern will rear its ugly head with matchups against Iowa and Nebraska, although you get them at home. But the back-to-back games at Michigan and at Michigan State will probably put Northwestern out of their misery. But still, Northwestern's schedule in the whole could have been a lot worse. There's no Wisconsin and no Ohio State on the schedule, so that will help. There's no reason why Northwestern cannot get back to a 5th straight bowl game. I foresee it probably being a 7-win year for Northwestern. The Iowa Hawkeyes last season went 7-6. And for one of the highest paid coaches in college football, Iowa fans probably expect a lot more from Kirk Ferentz's teams. This year, it'll help to have quarterback James Vanderberg return. He's a veteran. But the offense will have a little bit of a new wrinkle. Greg Davis, the former University of Texas offensive coordinator, now takes over that same position in Iowa City. The tight end, he's one of the best around, and C.J. Fedorowicz, a tall guy that will definitely help Iowa's passing attack and fact, he'll probably be Iowa's leading receiver, even though he's the tight end on the squad. Receiving core, they'd have to replace a big name in Marvin McNutt. And the ground game will have some new faces too, because Marcus Coker, their all-everything running back from 2011, well, he left the team. Pretty much the formula for Iowa football is simple. Score at least 24 points. In 2011, they were undefeated when they did so, going 7-0. But when they scored under 24 points, including the bowl game against Oklahoma, they were winless, 0-6. Defensively, they've got some work to do on the defensive line replacing players, but the linebacking core will be experienced with both Christian Kirksey and James Morris back, and cornerback Micah Hyde returns as well. Iowa's schedule, kind of like Northwestern's, is pretty favorable. Out of league play, it's not tough at all, and Iowa does not have to see Ohio State and does not have to see Wisconsin. And plus they get Nebraska at home, which will help big time. But there are road games against both Michigan and Michigan State, which will be killers for the Hawkeyes. Iowa will have an opportunity actually at an 8 or 9 win season. Not because they're very good, but because of the fact that their schedule is not that demanding. It'll be one of those teams in which their record may not really reflect how good or how bad they are. Iowa will definitely benefit from the schedule and will be in the thick of things in the Big Ten Legends, but will fall just short. The Minnesota Golden Gophers last year definitely knew what it was like to finish short, going 3-9 in 2011 under first-year head coach Jerry Kiel. There's no sense of beating around the bush. Minnesota simply does not have the talent of the upper echelon of the Big Ten. Marquise Gray does return for the Golden Gophers. He's a guy that can definitely run with the ball, and he last year had over 900 yards on the ground for the Golden Gophers. But he had a horrible time trying to complete passes, so he must be able to improve his passing efficiency. Last season on the defensive side, the Golden Gophers may not have been one of the worst defenses, but it definitely did not create opportunities. They had only 1 interception in all of 2011 in Big Ten play, and only 4 interceptions for the entire year, plus they gave up about 400 yards per ball game. Again, it may not have been the worst defense in all of college football, but it definitely bended quite a bit. For Minnesota, you can look at their schedule and say, well, it's not really that difficult. But last year's schedule featured North Dakota State and New Mexico, both in Minnesota, and the Golden Gophers lost both of them. So there's no such thing as a guarantee. What are you going to get from Minnesota? Will it be the team that knocked off Iowa last year and almost knocked off USC and Michigan State? Or will it be the team that, again, lost to that mediocre competition? For Minnesota, I'm expecting about the same season as last year. They're starting a lot of young players, so maybe in a couple of years they'll be bowling, but not this year. The Nebraska Cornhuskers entered 2011 as a new member of the Big Ten coming from the Big 12, and last season was good but not great. 9 wins and 4 losses, which included decisive wins over Michigan State last season, but also featured some disappointments in the home loss to Northwestern and blowout defeats against both Wisconsin as well as Michigan. For Nebraska, Taylor Martinez returns at QB, and he kind of reminds me of Denard Robinson, that quarterback that can make things happen with his feet in the open field. Very dangerous. Rex Burkhead also returns at running back, who had over 1,300 yards rushing in 2011. So both of those guys are going to be hard to contend with. The receiving core also welcomes back Kenny Bell. But the offensive line is probably where a lot of Husker fans are going to have some concern because of the fact that you have some areas to replace as far as the center position goes, and also you have to do some retoolings at the tackle positions. So that's going to take some time for Nebraska to adapt to. But speedster Amir Abdullah returns. He'll be used as running back, and also for Nebraska, he'll be used on special teams as well. The Huskers also went through some changes on the defensive side. They have a new coordinator, and the focus, of course, will be getting to the quarterback. Something not too long ago they were able to do back during the days of Ndamukong Suh and Jared Crick. Well, Suh, of course, hasn't played in Nebraska in 3 seasons, and Crick, during the latter part of his career, had injury issues. So now Baker Steinkuhler, a very capable defensive tackle, will be counted on to be the anchor of the defensive line. And Cameron Meredith last season for Nebraska had 5 sacks to lead the team. He returns at defensive end. But there's no doubt Nebraska is going to miss the heart and soul of that D. That's Levante David, who's moved on. Will Compton, though, has an opportunity to have all Big Ten honors this season at linebacker, And the guy the Huskers are really excited about is their junior college transfer, Zaire Anderson. Safety Damian Stafford should be the leader of the secondary after Alfonso Denard graduated. If you're looking at Nebraska as far as the schedule goes, the non-league schedule is a little tougher than normal. There's a road game against UCLA in the Rose Bowl against the Bruins team, in which will have a new head coach and a pass-happy, no-huddle offense. So the Huskers have to be ready for that. Plus, there's a couple of home games against a couple of conference champions from a year ago. Arkansas State out of the Sun Belt and Southern Miss out of Conference USA. And the Big Ten schedule will feature home games against both Michigan and Wisconsin. Both of those won't be easy. Plus road games against Northwestern, a team that beat them a year ago, as well as Michigan State. And there's also a road game to talk about at Ohio State. And Ohio State's going to be better this year than last year. For Nebraska, probably a 9-win season is in order. But to me, Taylor Martinez's arm I still do not trust. And plus, due to the fact that that schedule has a lot of hurdles on it. Nebraska will contend in the Legends, but I think they fall just short. I'm going to pick Nebraska to finish second. And that leads me to Michigan State. The Spartans last season were the 6th best defense in all of college football, and most of those pieces are back for the Spartans to make another Legends Division run. The defending division champions return linebacker Max Bolo and will have at least a couple of key defensive players in the secondary, cornerback Johnny Adams, as well as safety Isaiah Lewis. Defensive end William Golston should anchor up front. Michigan State last season, again defensively, they were absolute juggernauts. While the offense didn't always look crisp, for example, they had the game at Nebraska in which they didn't appear to show up. Same thing at Notre Dame. But the defense usually came to play. And the Spartans can count on that defense primarily to get the job done again. Last season, the Spartans sacked the quarterback 45 times. That's about 4 sacks a game. Offensively, though, they do have some question marks. They'll have a new quarterback. Andrew Maxwell now takes over after Kirk Cousins has moved on. And plus, receiving core, they've got some work to do as well. But Michigan State's offense has an opportunity to develop throughout the season. That's because 4 offensive linemen return, including offensive guard Chris McDonald. And the ground game should be one of the best that you're going to find in that part of the country. The running back is back, Le'Veon Bell, along with a talented, deep backfield that should give Michigan State plenty of depth. The Michigan State schedule is going to feature challenges, but then again, for teams like Nebraska and Michigan, their schedules are just as challenging. The difference is that most of Michigan State's difficult games are going to be at home. A good tune-up to start the season against Boise State should show a lot about Michigan State. Remember, Boise State will be good, but not as good as those Boise teams that we've seen in the past. We've got to remember Kellen Moore is no longer there. Plus, there's a home game against Notre Dame in which you know Michigan State's wanting revenge after what the Irish did to them a year ago. Plus, you get both Ohio State and Nebraska at home. A pivotal 2-game stretch in the season for the Green for Michigan State will be Wisconsin and Michigan in late October, both games on the road. While Michigan State does not necessarily have to win both games in order to win the Legends, they can't afford to get swept. And again, both of those games back-to-back, October 20th and 27th, both away from home. Look, nobody in the Legends division is going to go undefeated, and it is possible for a 2-loss team to win this division. But I think Michigan State will beat Nebraska. They'll get revenge on the Huskers. That game is at East Lansing. And again, I think Michigan State has got the best defense in all the Legends. So I give them just the slightest of edges over Nebraska in order to win the Legends division. I could easily see the Spartans and Huskers both being at 6-2, but Michigan State getting the tiebreak. And I think Michigan falls just out of the running this season. So look for Michigan State to represent the Legends division in the Big Ten. So what do I think about the Leaders division? Well, we'll talk about that on my next show as we'll preview college football's Big Ten division, the Leaders, on the next preview. So long.